Okay, so now let's say, for example, we are given the complex in a polar form, and now we have to convert it to a rectangular form. Let's say it's 3, and then it has an angle of 45. Okay, so remember we said now, when we have a complex like this in a polar form, that means this 3 here represent the resultant, and then the angle here represent the angle between the resultant and the x-axis, x which is the real part. So that means on our Acron diagram, we're gonna have the real part and imaginary part. Okay, we can see now our resultant, it has an angle of 45 degrees. So basically 45 degrees can be here. And then our resultant will have a value of how much? Of 3. Okay, so that means if we have our resultant like this, we can find what? We can find our vertical component, which is going to be our imaginary part, and we can also find our horizontal component, which is going to be our real part. So remember, the real part is A, the imaginary part is B. So that means, for example, we can find what? We can find A, and we can also find B, and represent our what? Our complex number into a rectangular form. So let's say now we want to find, remember, in a rectangular form, Z, it will be equals to how much? It will be equals to A plus JB. Okay, so now let's say, for example, we want to find the value of A. So remember, A here is the adjacent side. So remember, the adjacent side is what? It's adjacent to the angle, which is 45. This is 90 degrees. So if it's adjacent to the angle, that means it's going to be what? It's going to be a cos of theta, cos of the angle is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so that means now our adjacent side, which is A, our adjacent side, which is A, is going to be equals to how much? The hypotenuse, which is our resultant, and then cos of theta. Okay, and then same will apply here to B. Let's say we want to find B. B is opposite. So when you find opposite, you know you use a what? A sine of a theta. So sine of theta is going to be equals to opposite over hypotenuse. So now when you have opposite over hypotenuse, what is our opposite? Our opposite is what? Is B. When we cross multiply here, our hypotenuse is R. So we're going to have what? B is equals to R sine theta. Okay. So we can see now when we want the imaginary part is going to be what? Is going to be the resultant multiplied by sine of the angle. And when we want the real part is going to be what? It's going to be R multiplied by cos of theta. So from here we can say, okay, so now when we want to write this polar form in a rectangular form, we will say, our resultant is 3. So it's going to be 3 cos of 45. Because we know what? We know A, it has what is R cos of theta. And then J and B is going to be what? Remember, coefficient is J here. B is going to be 3 because R is 3 sine of 45. Sine of sine of 45. So when you put your 3 cos 45 onto your calculator, so the answer it will be how much? Let's say 3 cos 45. So your answer will be 3 over 2 square root 2 J. And then I think it will be the same here also with the sine of 45. Sine of 45. Yes, it's the same. So it's going to be 3 over 2 square root 2. Okay. So that will be your final answer. So that means your final answer here is what? has a real part and imaginary part.